Hey guys, what's up? Good morning. I'm Lawrence, I'm co-founder and CTO here at Quasar, and I'm joined today by
Steven, the co-founder at Define Logic Labs.
So today, let's talk about Quasar's role in improving interchain DeFi. Currently, interchain DeFi is quite a complex thing. It's quite a difficult thing. When we look at the state of Cosmos interchain DeFi, we see that liquidity is very inefficient and fragmented across the entirety of the Cosmos. Liquidity is hard to impossible, especially for regular users. And users, they always want things to be easier. Luckily, we are currently in the state of improving this. One of these improvements is concentrated liquidity by osmosis. Concentrated liquidity massively increases our capital efficiency, brings us new yield opportunities of untapped yields, and even with new native USDC and USDT, we can vastly lower our risk profiles within Cosmos. So, how do we actually improve interchain DeFi? Well, let's think about DeFi for a second. Right now, we've done a small improvement by managing 2.7 million, 2 million liquidity on osmosis. What we see when we optimize this liquidity is that we are able to achieve the same swap on a little less than $1 million as we can on Uniswap. And we do this with about 1/10 of the liquidity there. So why do we want these swaps? Why are these swaps efficient for us? More larger swaps for less costs means that we can do bigger swaps and support bigger DeFi markets. When we think about these DeFi markets, large swaps and swap efficiency are the foundational cornerstones of our DeFi markets. So now we can actually do some cool stuff. We can start to scale our current DeFi instruments on those swaps, and we can start to build cool new DeFi instruments on these swaps. But we still are with an issue here. Optimizing this liquidity in concentrated liquidity is hard to do. And users, they want their easy life. But we still need their liquidity, right? They are still the main liquidity providers for us. So maybe we can provide some kind of intermediary experience where we do something easier for users and still do it better. So the better thing, we want to rebalance and optimize users' positions. The easier thing gives us a clear pipeline where we know we need to provide users with a fully hands-off, easy-to-use, no-brainer experience. So we're going to build vaults. How are vaults going to work? Well, we're still in DeFi. We don't want any custodial stuff, like we don't want to touch that part of the world. So we're going to build some nice permissionless, non-custodial vaults. But there's actually something more important going on. We want our vaults to be off-chain computed. With that, I brought a very special guest, Steven, who's going to tell you about the off-chain computations.
All right. Perfect. So there are basically two ways to look at concentrated liquidity. You can look at it through on-chain automated concentrated liquidity, which we see on protocols like Arrakis and Gamma, or off-chain and dynamically rebalanced concentrated liquidity like you see with Range and Sommelier. So and even with Quasar. So let's look at these, what the differences are, what the pros and cons are. And we're going to be looking through the lens of yield, which is APR, impermanent loss, responsiveness, and the level of vault intelligence. So let's look at some case studies. This is some graphs. And I'm not going to name the protocol here, but you look at two instances of, this is a stable pair, so wrap staked ETH, ETH, and both of these are under a 90-day time frame. So this is automatically, algorithmically rebalanced. And so with automated algorithmic rebalancing, what you see over time, this is versus holding, is that in the first case of automated rebalancing, you have a negative share price versus holding over time. In the second case, it's about flat. This is over a 90-day period. So these are completely reliant on emissions for users to have a positive experience in these vaults. Now, this is from one of the largest concentrated liquidity management protocols that exists in all of DeFi. And this is how they're performing. Now look at their competitors, the ones who are using off-chain computation to intelligently have vaults rebalance positions. On the top, you can see this is an example from Merkle. There are a handful of different concentrated liquidity protocols. This is, again, wrap-staked ETH, so like pair. And you can see the only one that beats 1% yield is Range. Range is one of these types of protocols that uses off-chain computation. The other ones all use on-chain automatic rebalancing mechanisms. Then we have Sommelier. So this is, again, like-to-like concentrated liquidity pairs. And you can see over this really long time frame, so since May of 2003, the off-chain computation has managed to generate a between 10 to 5% APR over, let's say, months and months and months. And this is net of impermanent loss, after impermanent loss has been considered. I know people here like charts that go up and to the right. Here's a chart that goes up and to the right, right? So I'm trying to illustrate the difference, again, between automatically rebalanced concentrated liquidity versus off-chain computation. Let's look at a case study. So just a few days ago, we saw ST Atom have a bit of a day where it went down below 10% below peg. Now, if you have automated rebalancing mechanisms, what's going to happen is as the price of ST Atom against Atom starts to depeg, it's going to rebalance, actualize impermanent loss, rebalance, actualize impermanent loss, rebalance, actualize impermanent loss, and then it starts going up again. What is it going to do? Rebalance, actualize impermanent loss. You don't want that. By the time you get back to parity, you have eaten so much impermanent loss that you're not having a good day. So with off-chain computation, you can take a specific narrative, a specific set of understanding from multiple teams who are doing data science and say, okay, well, we know ST Atom is redeemable. And because ST Atom is redeemable, we can inform the vault and give the vault the level of intelligence to understand that. And then the vault will say, this is an anomalous situation. I don't need to rebalance right here. I understand this is going to go back to parity. Let's not eat this particular IL. One more case study. So these are unlike kinds, so volatile pairs. These are your USDC wrapped Ethereums, your wrapped Bitcoin ETHs, your Atom Osmo sorts of pairs. If they are automatically rebalanced and there's a high level of volatility, again, you're going to see some negative returns. On the top, this is a WETH USDC. You can see the vault share price versus holding goes down to about negative 5% over time. Here's another example. They have narrow and wide bands. Again, about negative 7% over time. So automatic tends to cause a lot of impermanent loss, can't be intelligent, can't adjust to narrative, can't adjust to other market conditions, whereas off-chain computation can be incredibly dynamic and responsive to the benefit of vault depositors.
Awesome. So now we know how we're going to do the better part, right? We can already do something for the user better. Now let's think, how can we make this easier for the user? Well, we're going to build this vault. We're going to build it permissionless and non-custodial, so we can kind of achieve this easier thing by providing this optimized automatic experience for a user. We still need to make it permissionless and non-custodial, but what does that mean? Well, for a user, it means a user can exit and enter positions whenever they want. I don't think anybody other than the users and the underlying DeFi protocols should be able to influence whether the user exits or enters this position. This means that the strategists only have the capability to send new data to the strategy, to try to send new data in to optimize the user's position. But permissionless, we're still in crypto. I still believe permissionless means that anybody can try to be a strategist. Anybody should be able to try his hand at managing concentrated liquidity. Now, obviously, we're building vaults, guys. There's still some form of trust assumption in building these vaults. It's not a completely trustless thing, but we can still minimize this trust assumption. So, how are we going to minimize this trust assumption? A tried and true method within crypto, which we've used in a ton of places, is slashability. You lock some tokens. If you behave bad, we're going to slash you. Some of the checks and balances that we can also implement. We can even take this slashability a step further and correlate your slashability with caps on your vaults, if you're a strategist. So let's say I lock up $10. I don't believe there's a reason for me to be able to manage $10 million. Now that's nice and all, but we'd rather prevent instead of slashing. Slashing is an only last resort. We can maybe prevent some fat finger mistakes, some misreads, but also bad actors before we get to that point. And for this, we have on-chain checks. So we have an automated range update master, which ensures that an actor isn't doing a very bad thing. But these are on-chain checks. Like we already talked about this before, you cannot automate everything on-chain. So we believe there should be still due diligence teams behind vaults. Behind our current vaults, we have the Quasar Association functioning as a due diligence team. That's nice and all, but how does it help? Well, the Quasar Association is actually bound by law and by Quasar governance to function properly within its rights. Right, cool. So now we actually can build these vaults. We've built them already. How are we going to make them work? Here, we've got Bob. Bob's a nice guy. Bob wants to provide some liquidity before he leaves to work. Bob's coming from a balancer experience. In Bob's mind, he dumps his funds into a pool. The pool earns yield. He comes back after work. 8 hours later, he has more money. This was true until we got to concentrated liquidity. Now that we are at concentrated liquidity, if Bob opens a position in a CL pool before he leaves for work, and he moves out of range 2 minutes when he's in his car, Bob's not earning any yield. Bob's just eating in permanent loss. So we're going to help Bob out. And this is where Steven comes in, beard not included. Steven is going to send data and analysis to the Quasar Association. The Quasar Association then checks... The Quasar Association then checks and contextualizes this data, and finally puts this contextualized data on-chain as a range for the vault. The vault has an internal system of checks and balances which it runs as well before the vault moves Bob's liquidity according to the optimized range. So now when Bob comes home from 8 hours of hard work, he'll have more rewards than he previously had by doing less work. All right, so what's next for Quasar? We've got these pieces of vaults, which we can use as infrastructure. These nice cornerstones where we can start building more complex DeFi up, more efficient DeFi on. And what I believe will be the biggest, most important part will be protocol-owned liquidity. Osmosis has decided in their governance to stop giving out incentives for non-strategic assets. But as a protocol, you still want people to be able to swap efficiently into your asset. Now, you could obviously create a balancer pool. You could create maybe some sort of stable swap, depending on the asset, and just put your protocol-owned liquidity in there. But if you do that, your swaps aren't efficient. Now, this is where our vaults come in. Governance can decide to launch a CL vault in coordination with Quasar, where we optimize the ranges in the vault. Governance only has to decide to place the tokens in there. They still give high swap efficiency to their users and achieve a better situation than we have right now while doing less work. On top of these vaults, we can also build some more advanced strategies. We can build some interchange strategies. We can decide to combine multiple primitives together. Here we can think about cash and carry. We can think about hedging and permanent loss. We can build a lot of complex things on top of these vaults. We can even build leverage vaults, where you leverage into a position, or maybe tradable vault shares. So I don't know what other people are going to build with tradable vault shares, but for sure you'll be able to send them somewhere, provide them as collateral, lock them as a staked asset so you can maybe take on some other risk elsewhere. All right, what's the real alpha then? Well, the real alpha, I think, today is Noble USDC, USDT. Pool's been live for a little bit on Osmosis. Incentives are coming live. So when is the vault going to come live? That's coming live today. And then on top of this, Quasar is going to supercharge real yield ETH in the Cosmos. We're going to provide a vault on top of the real yield ETH pair on Osmosis to allow other people to build on top of this and to allow these users to be LPs for these other DeFi protocols built on top of real yield ETH. So I have a last bit of alpha, which is not
say really quickly. Real ETH is a basket of ETH indexes that has a bunch of different ETH assets, getting an ETH yield, now being paired with ETH on another platform. So if you like ETH, This ETH makes you get ETH on your ETH. And it's concentrated.
So then one last piece of alpha, which is so alpha, I don't even have a slide for it. Our airdrop governance proposal is live on-chain right now. Go vote on it. Go get your airdrop. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.